My name is Robin Soltz. I'm the president of Kittitas County version chapter of League of Women Voters, and it's a pleasure to see you here, even though I know most of you. But it's a pleasure anyway. Thank you for coming out. I will dispense with the discussion of the League of Women Voters, only to say that the League is an advocate of democracy. It's nonpartisan. We have 57 members here, and that's a lot of fun. So if you'd like to join, feel free. The paperwork is back there, and there'll be people to help you. I want to thank our host, the Ellensburg Library, in particular Josephine, and Kim. Kim, you are a genius at setup. You're like a mind reader. And of course, the League of Women Voters and the Auditor's Office here for agreeing to give this talk. If you don't know, but I suspect you do, the restrooms are outside and around the corner, and then you turn it over in the corner and you'll see you there. Timing, we have almost as long as Bryan's willing to stay. He'll let you know if he wants to go. So with that, I will turn it over to Bryan. He's going to start, and then I will ask him some questions we've gathered from our people, from our membership and other sources. And this isn't too surprised to try to corner him. It's just questions that people can ask. So without further ado, I introduce our revered auditor, Bryan with the Y.
Hey, thanks for being here. And I'm not offended at all that we didn't fill the room. I'm not Chris Harriet back there. I can't fill the room back here, so that's okay. And I know that more than I appreciate you being here, one person in the crowd does, and that's Josie. I told her if nobody shows up, she's going to have to sit right there for 2 hours and read this thing anyways. So, you're welcome. So I think what we'll do tonight, especially just kind of with our smaller group here, is I'm going to go through a presentation that I have that's kind of my standard presentation that I give to my schools, Rotaries, I've given it at the CW, I've given it to the Ellensburg City Council. I call Elections 101. There's a state version of this, which is like one of the training courses that we're becoming a certified elections official. It's more detailed on like how to administer elections. But this version is informational. And we can really go as high or as low as we want to with this material. I think that some of the questions that we have will help us kind of dive into it. So I'm going to try to not get too deep into the weeds as we go through this presentation. And kind of use for Q&A and some discussion as we do that. So, ground rules, there are none. I'm pretty much an open book. I think the only thing that I won't really comment on is like my opinion on candidates. I'm going to do that with the auditor. But any policies around elections or like optimization of what we can do better, I'm totally open to discuss that. As you'll see in the presentation, I think that the system we have, especially right here in Kittitas County, is pretty darn good, but there's always room for improvement, and it's healthy to have those types of conversations. So, I'm just going to go ahead and start. So, wherever I like to start when I'm talking about elections, I like to start with this elections triad here. And the reason I start with that too is a lot of our discussions around elections has to do with policy and where we place our values on this respective elections triangle, right? So I have some background in project management from my time in the military. And so in project management, you've got work, time, and resources that are like always pulling against each other, right? And you can never have enough of all. And so in elections, it's the exact same thing. You've got security, you've got transparency, you've got accessibility. Everyone's tugging on each other a little bit. And a really good example of this is something that we did this year in our elections office. We installed live view cameras, which we'll talk about, position inside of our election center. So folks who are at home during the election processing window, which really this election will start, we turn them on the Friday, but really processing starts on Monday the 21st. It'll run all the way through certification, right? So that's like 39 days of election live view cameras. That's transparency right there. However, there's some security concerns with that. In the state of Washington, there are laws against being able to capture images of ballots. There's laws against being able to capture images of signatures. That's security. So what do we do to mitigate that? We have to do low resolution cameras. So you can see the process, you can see the actions. As good, maybe even a little bit better than if you're like standing at the window, right? Because you're like in the room above the workers. But even if you were to zoom in on your computer, you're not going to be able to capture an image of the ballot, an image of somebody's signature, any of that stuff. So that's a good example of two things that kind of go against each other. I would say in the state of Washington, if you were to draw a center point in this triangle, it would be somewhere kind of like 2/3 of the way down towards accessibility. That's just how our system and our laws are set up. And if you go to different states, that center point probably would objectively be in different places. Just how those systems are set up. Because really states get to, there's some federal laws that are kind of like, hey, you can't do these things or you must do these things. But generally states get to decide their election process, which is a really good segue. I'll go here first. Our system. So we're an all vote by mail state. So RCW 29A.40.10. We've been an all vote by mail state for about 20 years now. I think the statistic I heard is before we went all vote by mail, about 70% of residents actually requested to receive their ballot via mail. So we've been going this way for a while. We've been vote by mail now for a while. And this is what our system looks like. So it kind of all starts with voter registration. And this used to be, even up to about 5 or 6 years ago, voter registration was like a first step in the process as you work towards an election, because there was going to be a cutoff, right? You had to register a certain number of days before the election. I think it was 30. It was like early in my voting life that this law started to change, right? However, as recent as, I think it was 2018, we went to a same-day voter registration state. So essentially, the law that you had to be registered to vote a certain number of days prior to election, that went out the door, and now you can register for that election and still cast a ballot as long as you met all the requirements. And actually, one of the requirements is if you're within the 8-day window, you got to come into my office and present ID and actually register. You can receive a ballot and actually vote in that election. So voter registration is less of a first step now. It's more of a continuous process. Because at 7:59 on election day, people are still registering to vote for that election. That will happen in this presidential election, right? And at 8:01, people can register for the very next election that's going to be happening. So that's more of a continuous process. Where we really start looking at like an individual election, we have election preparation, which we'll dive into a little bit more of the components of that. But essentially, we design the ballot in-house based on candidates that we receive from the Secretary of State's office, candidates that do file to run for county and local offices, as well as resolutions from like government. So on the November election, we have a rose levy. The county commissioners passed a resolution to put that on the ballot, and they submitted that within a time frame to us. We received it, and so that's why that measures on the ballot. School districts will do the same thing. Fire districts, hospitals. That's how those measures get to us, and we'll kind of dive into that. We do an LNA test, which is a pre-election audit. It's one of two main audits we do for the election, but basically we take the actual ballot, we will fill out actual ballots according to a matrix, and then we run it through our scanning and tabulation machine. We know what the end results are, so when we run it through the scanner and tabulator, we're comparing to make sure that what we filled out matches what comes out of the machine, to make sure they're reading what was actually marked by the voter, that in our case is the staff who's testing the process. Ballots are printed, they get mailed out. Ballots come back through two main means, which is ballot drop box and USPS, and then we get into ballot processing. So ballots are coming back to us. I say Monday the 21st is when we'll start to really receive ballots. It's not necessarily 100% true because receive some of the ballots. But the main bulk of ballots for people who are here in Kittitas County will start coming in when we do our ballot drop-offs pickup on Monday the 21st, and then we'll receive ballots in the mail through USPS, and that will continue all the way up until election night when we tabulate our first round of results, right? Everything that's been received is processed and scanned up until that point. And then we continue processing. We still have some ballots coming in the mail after election day as long as they've been postmarked. And then we do our random batch audit, which is a post-election audit, give a little detail on that. And then we have the canvassing board who will review the issues or the ballots that have issues. So signature mismatches, no signatures, late postmarks, all those things. There's a whole bunch of laws that basically tell us what we must do with those ballots. But we will officially review and then make those decisions and ultimately certify that election. So that's like a high level from start to finish what it looks like. So this is our elections calendar for 2024. We have 5 elections this year, starting in February. February this year was Ellensburg School District, I believe. In March, we had a presidential primary. That was that weird one, right? Who knows what we had to do with the president's primary? What was different about it? Sure did. Yep. Once every 4 years, we have this weird presidential primary. We have to declare parties because law and courts have said we must facilitate major political parties' nomination process. Both Republican and Democratic parties say we only want our voters voting in this election. So that's why it's on the ballot. That's why if you wanted your vote to count, you had to make a party choice, and then ultimately you had to vote for the party candidates within the party of the choice that you made. But the good news is what you did in March has zero. What you did or didn't do in March, if you didn't vote, has zero impact on the November election. In terms of you can vote for whoever you doesn't matter. Doesn't stop you, doesn't bind you to voting for one candidate or another. So in April we had Econ levy, we had filing week in May. This year we have 2 county commissioner positions that filed, as well as our judges for Superior Court. So we had filing week, and then in August, we had the August primary. What was weird about the August primary this year is that we had a very rare statewide recount, mandatory. 2 candidates, second and third place for Public Lands Commission were separated by 51 votes at 1.9 million cast statewide. That's like crazy close, right? And actually, this is one of those weird elections where from election day all the way to certification, you had no idea who was going to win. Because every time ballots that came in, right, or were cured by people fixing their signatures, those ballots would be processed and scanned in different counties. And you had this the entire time, right? Second, third place, bouncing over each other all the way up to certification. And then we had a mandatory 100% statewide hand recount. So we hand counted 12,500 ballots in Kittitas County, and compared that at the precinct level to our machine tabulated results, which will talk to you how we tabulate all that stuff. In Kittitas County, we came out with 0 errors. So it's like a 100% hand audit of the process, and we were 100% matched up against our machine, which is pretty good going into the November election. That inspires a lot of confidence for me. So I was very proud of my staff for their efforts. November general election, that's what we're going on to. Okay, voter registration. So voter registration, requirements in Washington State, you gotta be a U.S. citizen, you gotta be at least 18 years of age, but oh wait, 16, 17-year-olds can be in the future voter program, and actually 17-year-old voters can vote in primaries so long as they're gonna be 18 before a general election. So like the voters who were 17 in March, but have maybe turned 18 like over the summer or now, were eligible and received ballots in March. That's the way our state law is written. So, but those same voters were not eligible to vote in the April special election, KitCon, because it's not a primary that drives a November election. It's the easiest way to look at it. So that's a unique thing about Washington State. Can't be a convicted felon who's currently in prison. There used to be another one on here, but about 6 months ago, the 30-day residency requirement was removed for a federal judge. So that one has been removed. It's still in, it's kind of awkward because you can see it, it's still in the state constitution, it's still in the state law, but a federal judge says that's not legal, not constitutional, so It has been removed as a requirement, and it's kind of this awkward thing. But per our role as administrators, we follow the law and the direction of the Secretary of State. So that is no longer a requirement, no longer in the registration form, and probably will be addressed by the legislature this session. Registering to vote, you got the vote law portal. You can fill out a voter registration form. You can also come to the county auditor's office for proof of ID. So when you register to vote, you're going to put your driver's license on there and or your social security number. That's what we're going to look up in the system to basically verify your identity along with your name and your date of birth. Where do most voter registrations come from? Who knows? It's not paper forms, I can tell you that. Anybody? DOL, Department of Licensing, driver's licenses. When you go in to get your driver's license, they're going to ask, they're required to ask you to register to vote. Most of the signatures we receive are like the signatures on the pad, which sometimes can be problematic, right? Because those things are hard to sign on. But what I'd urge people to do is if you're going down there, you're renewing your driver's license, if you're signing on one of their pads, or if you have people, especially young folks who are doing that, tell them to take the signature seriously. Because that will be what's compared to their voter signature. So we need a good signature, right? And that's an issue we continue to work on with the Department of Licensing on their driver's licensing side, because a lot of our signature issues stem from the pad not being very legible, or people not kind of scribbling it in, right? Kind of like when you do when you're like signing for like buying coffee or something, and then that will be compared to for voting. That's challenging, right? Let's register to vote database. So how do we maintain our voter database or our voter rolls? Those are maintained at the county level. In my county, in my office, I've got essentially one full-time person who's, I would say, 95% of her job is just managing the voter database for Kittitas County. So about 30,000 registered voters that we have. There's 4 classifications, but really we deal with 3 of them on a regular basis. Active. Active means that like you're green, you are registered, you don't have any issues with your address, you've got all the information to verify your identity, you're receiving a ballot, no problems. Inactive means that, well, 99% of the time it means you're undeliverable, right? So like you've moved and you failed to update your address, you got a little yellow tag back with your ballot. Now we place you to an inactive status. We send out confirmation cards to any addresses that we have on file, trying to get you to say, hey, you see that you moved, and you send us your updated address. I will tell you from an elections administration standpoint, the most challenging part of the voter registration process in Washington State is voters who move, don't update, and then we have inactive voters who are there. And it's just a challenging thing to manage. So that's where our inactive voters come from. Canceled voters, so people who pass away, we get notification that they moved to another state and registered, or they've been inactive for 2 federal elections. Yeah, go ahead, Tish.
Well, I'm just wondering, what percentage of that database is not active? Is like 95% active, and it's a little bit of the rest, or I wonder?
Yeah, that's good. So what Tish is asking, I'm repeating it for the TV. It's all good. So Tish is asking, like, what percentage of our voter database is inactive voters? Top of my head is a couple thousand for Kittitas County, and it fluctuates, right? Because we're going to hit a like after this federal election, there'll have been people who were on there 2 federal elections ago who are going to get moved to the cancel category, right? But we got to wait until after the certification of federal election. So it fluctuates, but a couple thousand out of 30,000 registered, so let's call it 10%. I think that's fairly, yeah.
So my question is,
Yeah.
how does it figure that you know if a person is deceased?
Yeah, how do we know if somebody has passed away? That's the question. So we have a couple of different databases. Vote law, because it's integrated statewide, has a whole series of notification systems that come in automatically. So like Department of Health is the big one. Department of Health sends notices, and it's like on an upload, right? So they upload a bunch of them, we go in, we flag people, deceased. We also get reports from family members. Family members will call us and say, hey, mom or dad passed away. So in that conversation, we'll verify that they're not somebody made this story up. But that's pretty common for us. And then obituaries. We look at obituaries, we get the paper every day. So it's a combination of sources. And is it a perfect system? No. And I would say that for moving too, right? Folks move away. And I had a situation where a husband and wife moved to North Dakota, and the wife's name got picked up by USPS NCOA database as being, hey, they moved, so she was inactivated, no problem. But the husband stayed active, right? And it was through a voter registration challenge process that it got reported to us. We contacted the voter and they said, yeah, please don't just inactivate us, cancel us, because we moved out of state, right? So those are some of your anomalies. But I'd say about 90% it picks up automatically, and then the rest of it has to be done through contacts with voters and people reaching out to us. So, good questions though. Managing the database, we kind of already covered this. So, maintaining the right to vote is a presumptive right. So that is something that is that's in the law, right? We can't just arbitrarily inactivate or cancel folks. We've got to have a reason, and there's a list of things that qualify for that. Namely, like reporting from an official government agency, like the Department of Health is like an official way that we can then remove people from the voter rolls. Got some of the other tools that we use up there, and I think the ballot being issued. So this is like where we're at right now for the November election. We're about to issue ballots. Ballots come out ballots get mailed out October 15th, which means they're going to be hitting houses 17th of October. So that's like next Thursday, Friday. They get mailed out from our vendor, which is K&H Printing in Everett. They do most of the election offices in Washington State. I haven't had a chance to go there yet, but I've heard that they have like a super high-tech, very secure facility. The ballots gets ultimately distributed by USPS out of their facility in Renton. We give instructions for ours to go out 21 days prior to the election, which is a Tuesday, so that people get them 18 days prior. State law says you must send them out 18 days prior, so we like to give those the full 18 days before they vote. What we always tell people is if you don't receive your ballot by the 21st, that would be that Monday after, that's when you want to give us a call and let us know. And more than likely, it moved, got inactivated, we'll get you fixed, no problem. Ballots themselves. Okay, so ballots are individualized by barcode, which is tied to that specific district or precinct. They're not individualized to the voter, right? Ballot is specific in the sense that, like, it is, you live in this neighborhood, which is this precinct, and you have these candidates on it based on where you live. But it's not tied to you as an individual voter. But your ballot envelope is tied to you, right? It's got a barcode on it, there's your name on it, and it's got to have your signature on it in order to be. That's an important thing to keep in mind. We'll talk about that. Ballots get returned. You got to vote your own ballot. I think everybody in this room probably knows that. I'm pretty confident in that. But I have at least one conversation every election with a very well-intentioned parent who is like, yeah, I filled out my kid's ballot. We went away to college. And I'm like, oh, you didn't tell me that. Don't ever do that again. So there is a process for it, and I'll get into the canvassing for it. But if we do have suspicions folks are doing that, we do have a referral to the prosecutor's office. What it usually results in is almost all of our incidents are family related, is a letter to that parent, husband, wife, whomever, saying, we suspect, or you told us that this occurred. Don't ever do it again. It is a Class C felony. But the prosecutor's office takes the position. We're not in the business of throwing mom and dad in jail for well-intentioned mistakes on consequences. So that's kind of how we push that. But please avoid that altogether. Complete your own ballot. Instructions. Okay, so just some terminology. We talk about undervotes. Undervotes means you didn't vote for anybody. That's an option. You can overvote, which is an option of the voter, but it cancels itself out. That means you voted for 2 people. And then you can obviously do a write-in as well. The thing about write-ins, though, is that write-in is not a declared candidate. It won't actually count towards being an official write-in ballot. So you can write in Mickey Mouse all day long, and it's your right as a voter, but Mickey Mouse is not a declared writing candidate, so ultimately when writing and show up on the ballot, it will count towards being elected. Let's see what else is on the slide. Ballot, returning the ballot. Let's talk about witnesses. So for folks who struggle with signing a ballot for whatever reason, this happens a lot. Folks who are getting elderly, maybe having issues, health issues. So there's an option for that. It's usually the witnesses, right? So you have two witnesses who do their signatures, and then that person who's having trouble making their signature make some sort of X, line, whatever they can do, then that will count towards being credited to that voter and will process that ballot. So, yes, sir.
Do the witnesses have to be registered voters?
Yeah, that's a good question on there. I'm north of 90% certain that it's yes, but I'm going to get back to you. I haven't been asked that before. A little bit of housekeeping real quick. So what is my role in the elections process? I oversee the elections process. I'm the chief elections explainer, which is why I'm here today. But I have 3 full-time staff members with combined 60 years of experience who are exceptional at their job. And so usually when I get asked a question like that, I've got Sue or somebody right here who's like, it's 100% how we do it. But in the interest of not giving you the wrong info, I'm gonna come back to that. So that's a good question. Returning your ballot. So you've got 9 ballot boxes in the county, 5 in the other county, and 4 that are in the lower county, ranging from Easton all the way to Kittitas. The 2 main ones that people know about are the 2 courthouses, right? The main courthouse in Ellensburg, and then our courthouse in the other county, the Ellensburg will drive up. So you can drive right up, drop your ballot in. We did upgrade the size of those this year because they fill up quick. I think it was last year's November election. I went to go pick up one on the Monday before the election in Cleelum, and it was like pulling cardboard out of it. Like that's how pressed down the ballots were. I mean, we were like 3 ballots away from like overflow. So that's where it was like, we gotta upgrade the size of this box. And that had been like, I think 1 day difference, 2 days difference since the last one. So knowing what the volume is going to be for this election, we did upgrade those 2 ones. And then we actually just, same size, but we got the newer sign for CW. They got a new ballot box. And then we got that one moved under our camera as well. So wins all around there. Ballot pickup, I usually do the ballot pickup kind of done this time, just with everything that's going on the election side of the house, and then the other side of the house which I have to support, which is our budget and finance department. We've got 2 trained staff members who are going to go out and pick up the ballots. Usually I'm one. Usually it's me plus 1. This time we've got 2 that are going to go out and do that for this election. But the standards are the same. 2 trained, deputized staff members of the auditor go out and actually collect the ballots, and then they're returned to the courthouse in their separate sealed bags and security stored as they wait ballot processing, which starts right here. So this is our election center. For the folks who were here or who were at our election observer training last night, we got like a tour of the inside, which is cool because that's like super like authorized personnel, so you should feel pretty awesome about that. But this is in the basement of the Kittitas County Courthouse in Ellensburg. So the observation area is right here. These are 2 windows that observers can look through. There's space for about 6 people right at those windows, and the whole room of that observation area can hold 30 to 40 people very comfortably. So that's why we don't really limit our observers. We just say, hey, if you want to come observe, show up, right? We encourage it. And then we do have the sign machines available for like with either the Republican, Democratic Party, or we have an unaffiliated one, which is mostly used by the league, so that you all can coordinate if you want to have a scheduled times. But we don't manage that. We don't police it. Come and go as you please. If you want to come down in between grocery shopping and a haircut, come on down and observe. It's all good. So steps in the process here. Ballots received. So ballots come in, USPS or ballot drop box. They're going to come to this table first, right? Usually we set a couple of tables out right here. Those ballots are going to be batched because ultimately we have to reconcile which means that like the same number of ballot envelopes as ballots were received, and we have to count all the ballots that through the process. It's a huge spreadsheet of like all the different categories of like ballots that are in trouble, no signatures, all the kind of things. It all has to balance. It's much easier to maintain and to track that when you do that in batches of 300 ballots rather than this election will be 26,000, 27,000 ballots. So we batch it, right? The day they're received, the location they're received, we put them in batches of usually 150 to 300 ballots, and then they start this process. They're going to go to signature verification. So this is where your signature on the envelope matters, because we're going to scan that barcode. It's going to pull up your signature record on the computer screen, and then we're going to compare it. We're going to say, with the presumption that this is the voter, do these signatures match, and is that voter's signature? So think about that in mind. The standard there is the presumption that it is the voter. So to get to a point where we're like, nah, that's not, it's usually very clear. It's especially very clear to my 3% who have like 56 years of experience. Typically we run about 3% rejection rate, which actually for the state of Washington is kind of on the higher end. So sometimes we get a little bit of feedback for that, but I'll also tell you that when I started as auditor, we had 60% of our signature rejections were because of no signature. Those are the easiest ones to reject, especially because it's got a big box there, and it's got a arrow that says sign here. At least that's what we did when I came into office. And we've cut down on that a little bit since we added that box. But yeah, it's got no signature. We don't have a choice, right? Now, what are we going to do with those folks? We're going to send them a letter. We're going to say, hey, between now and the day before certification, please return this form right here with your signature so that we can compare it to the signature on the ballot. If you have no signature, sign it and say, yes, that is in fact your ballot, and we can get you processed. So about 3%. But 97% of ballots are going to continue on from signature verification to opening and inspection. So we have staff that, first off, they're going to be opened by the ballot letter opener right there. And they get brought to this table. They get pulled out of the envelopes, separated from the secrecy sleeves if the voter chooses to do that, and then inspected. So what are we inspecting for? We're inspecting for things that are not going to get tabulated or scanned right in the scanner. So like voters do all sorts of silly things. They spill spaghetti sauce on their ballots. They write slip notes on the ballot. Sometimes they say, not this candidate, and it goes through the box. Well, that's going to count as votes, according to the machine. But what we do is we understand voter intent, pull the rules for us, so we're going to put those ballots off to the side. Our staff locally calls them the ugly ballots, so we make sure that the voter's intent is captured. Ballots continue on, though. If they're good, they go to the scanning station. And when they're there, that usually starts, this election, we're going to start that on the Wednesday prior to election day. So it's our plan right now. So that's the 30th or the 29th of October is what we're planning. It does depend on volume, right? We can start getting a ton of ballots really early on. We're going to accelerate that timeline because we've got to stay on track so that we can post as much of the ballots that have been returned to us by election night. And scanning is not counted. Scanning is the scanner sits right over here on this table, actually taking an image of every ballot that gets sent through and storing that on a USB drive. And that USB drive sits in the CPU of that computer, and it just sits there all the way up until election night. So scanning, all of our ballots all the way through, storing that data on that USB. Nothing's been counted yet, because we need to get to ballot tabulation election day activity. So we're going to continue to process incoming ballots as quickly as we can, all the way up until election p.m. on election night. At 8 p.m., the ballot drop boxes are going to be secured by designees of the auditor's office. So designees will be like, I have fire chiefs, I have fire commissioners, I have police chiefs who I deputize, and then they actually secure the ballot drop boxes. And I can't get 9 ballot drop box locations at once. I do the one at the courthouse. So we close those at exactly 8 o'clock, but we don't empty them that night, right? So the ballots that have been received from the last pickup that day, that ballot drop box, for some ballot drop boxes, like our outliers, it's usually Monday afternoon until Wednesday morning. They sit there, right? But the ballots stop being received. It's closed and locked at 8 p.m. So our designees are going to close those boxes. Downstairs in the election center, we're going to take that USB from the ballot scanner and put it into a separate computer, which is a ballot tabulator. We're going to hit the tabulate button. Images are turned into ones and zeros on a big Excel spreadsheet called cast vote record. Auto sums up, produces a PDF. That is your initial preliminary results on election night. It also has a copy of that same results on the USB. Those results are then brought by hand to a county laptop with secure network access. The key for this is that neither of these systems have any ability to report results because they're not connected to each other or the other, right? So everything is being moved by USB. That USB walks all the way across the room, back over these computers, which are networked. So from over here through our fence, all the way back. It's plugged into the county network and it's uploaded to the Secretary of State's website. We also send them a copy of the PDF results as well. What they're going to do is they're going to compare those, because in the event you had a bad actor, say you commit a cyber attack and try to disrupt the reporting of the results, they've got the two-factor verification there. And that's why results take sometimes up to half an hour to post on our website, is because Secretary of State's office is validating your paper and your electronic match, right? Once they confirm they do, they let it go through to our website, and that's where you can go to Kittitas County Elections and actually see those results. But we're not done yet. Final processing and tabulation. So that day after election, we're going to go out and up those last round of ballots. We've still got ballots coming in through the mail. Who was at my election observer training last night? Okay, Pam, can you tell me what the deal is if you submit your ballot in a mailbox, not a ballot drop box, at 4 p.m. on election day? What's going to happen?
They look at like a week after because our ballot is sent to the Yakima, our mail is sent to the Yakima, and then it's sent to Seattle, and so it will hit date stamped by November.
That's right. It's going to be date stamped probably November 6th when it gets to Seattle. What we legally have to go off is when we have the postmark. So that's the call to action for all you smart folks in the room already know this, but anybody on TV, if you're going to submit your ballot, I would even say the day before the election, I have strong recommendations for ballot drop box. Strong recommendation to ensure that it is postmarked or received by election. As long as you get in a ballot drop box, you're good, because you won't be able to after 8 p.m. on election day. But we got those ballots coming in, and our out-of-state ballots sometimes can take up to a week. But I think a pretty good rule of thumb is this, like 75% of all ballots that are going to be received are going to be uploaded by election night, and you'll get another 20% uploaded by the Thursday after election day. So you're looking like 95% of everything counted for our county by end of day Thursday, and everything else is like 5% that's an outlier. In a really close election like Public Lands Commission, that matters, right? Sure, you go up and down. That will accelerate, what we do to try to process as possible. The vast majority of elections, though, that is decided effectively on Thursday, even though the results are not final until certification. Random batch audit. I'm a big fan of the random batch audit. There's another one called a risk limiting audit, which is for, I guess you're a math wizard, and I'm not. It might be really cool and make sense to you. I'm not even trying to explain it. It's got algorithms and all sorts of stuff. But the random batch audit is cool because it's simple. What we do is we take 3 batches of ballots, remember about 300 ballots that are randomly selected. Actually, you all can be part of this process if you want to. Random batch audit selection. The first one's going to happen, I think it's 2:30 in the afternoon. It's posted on our schedule. 2:30 in the afternoon, I believe, on October 29th. And then it'll be 2:30 or 2 in the afternoon on November 6th, the day after election day. And those ballots that have been processed, right, that haven't been scanned and tabulated yet, you can draw numbers out of the hat. Those numbers correspond to the boxes or the batches of the ballots. Those are set aside and locked up until we do our random batch audit. What we do is we actually in-count, just like we did in the manual recount, those 3 batches, and then we put them through the machine separately to ensure that the hand-counted result that we have and that we did in the first place matches what the machine is, right? To ensure the machine is properly tabulating the scan images. So,
Can you share how the random batch audit is duplicated in the overall count?
yes, that's a good question, right? Some systems you can can actually go and you can pull by a badge. So you can scan and match them all, and it's no problem. But when we do it, that's why we separate ours out and we lock them securely, and we're only going to put them through the machine once, right? We hand count them first, just those 3 batches, none of the other ones we hand count, and then we put them through basically on their own separate scan and tabulate so that we can compare those results and ensure that they align with our hand count, what we just wrote down here. So, good question. Okay, so then we're going to get to the canvassing board. Canvassing board is myself, chair of the board, county commissioner, and prosecutor. We usually start meeting the week before certification. Kittitas County is unique and fortunate in the sense that we're small enough that I look at every treble ballot. Canvassing board, all the no signatures, all the rejected signatures, all the mismatches, all the late postmarks, they all get looked at by our canvassing board, and then either officially approved or, excuse me, I should say accepted or rejected in accordance with state law. So those meetings are open to the public. They're also held downstairs at the election center. We can post that schedule on our website when we're going to be meeting. We then finally, on certification day, review the final minutes, final results, reconciliation report, and certify the election. That will happen in this election 21 days after the election, so that's when the results are. Here's some resources, starting with our state constitution, all the way down to election live stream. There's my address and contact info. I think maybe Robbie can send this out to folks, or you can have a copy of it. Put it on the league's website. It's all good. Most get it distributed. So you can also take a picture of mine or reach out to me. So
I think this whole presentation's already on our website.
oh, cool. There we go. Well, this is version 5, so I might have fixed the typo or something from version 4. I don't know. That's good. Okay. That is my presentation. How did we do? We did that in, it was 45 minutes. So, okay. That's not bad.
All right, so we have some prepared questions.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and there are 20 of them. I might go to every other one. What do you think? Very good. But the first question is from an audience member here.
Oh, good. Okay. I was going to say, if we can ask audience questions first, let's do that.
Of course.
Okay, perfect.
All right, and it won't go on the recording unless you speak in the mic. That's why I was running around waving the mic. I didn't get to people before they spoke. So here's the first question.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to a voter who thinks there was a voter fraud issue because their candidate lost?
What would I say to that? Whenever I answer these type of questions, I like to bring in hyperbole. Because at the end of the day, what can I control as a Kittitas County voter? In this sense, what can you control as a voter, right? So if somebody was to be concerned about that and they're a Kittitas County resident, then I'm going to bring them to this presentation. I'm going to bring them to my office and I'm going to say, I hear you, and I don't know what your specific example is that you're talking about. I don't know all the evidence. I wasn't part of that process, but I can show you what Kittitas County does, and I can show you why if you're casting a ballot in Kittitas County, that your vote is secure and it's going to be. And so from that perspective, what I can control is I can help ensure that your vote, every legally cast vote is counted, and you can continue to participate in the process so that your vote is through. Yeah.
Excellent. What is the one thing you wish all voters knew about mail-in ballots?
Mail-in ballots. Okay. I would say, and this is probably going to relate back a little bit to that question. Mail-in ballots. I come from the generation in Washington State that's only ever had mail-in ballots, right? I don't know any other system. So I get a lot of feedback from folks who had the old system on both sides, and that was really cool, really fun. And I hear that from folks from all sides of the aisle. It's not just one party or another. What I will tell you though is this: our system, I couldn't imagine ballot processing and tabulation any other way because it is so tightly controlled. When it comes to my office, it is 3 paid professional staff members, myself, and 2 seasonal workers who have like years of experience who are processing ballots from start to finish. There's sometimes value in having more people involved in the process, right? Because that can extend accountability. It also extends the ability for or the opportunity for errors. And so ultimately, election systems are all going to come down to people and processes. Like I said, in our recount, what we were able to validate is that we had 100% audit of one race. It was unpredictable. We had no idea that it could have been that close or it was going to be that close. And we came out 100% the same as our machine result, and we reconciled 100% down to the precinct level. In Arizona in 2022, they had election machines, which are traditional polls that voting machines shut down on election day. And I'm not even saying that's nefarious. I'm just saying that if that happened here, if people were disenfranchised because we had a system that failed on election day, I'd probably resign.
All right, another audience question from tonight. The Kittitas County Auditor's Office does tremendous work. Oh, there's a part. Tell us.
Thanks,
Brian. Tell us the source of your passion for county auditing.
County auditing. I love my job. When I ran for this office, I was initially like elections, because that's all people want to talk about when they're in the office. It's what people care about. It makes sense. The vast majority of the public. But I'll tell you, my job on a day-to-day basis, and what I put on my LinkedIn profile, is I'm the executive director of finance and operations for the Kittitas County. I oversee county budget and finance department. I'm the project manager lead on a $1.2 million software upgrade. Simultaneously, I'm the lead on 3 separate department union negotiations. We're putting together the 2025 budget. We implemented a whole new lease fleet model really this spring. I get to work with great sub-agents in the DOL world and work as a partner with them, right? In terms of issuing, vehicle tab registrations and that whole system. I get to report documents for landowners, which has a lot of like history tied into it, and then I get to oversee this really cool elections process, which is exciting. I mean, I love elections. I'm a political science major from Central, and so like on election night when the results print, I'm the first or the second person, depending on how fast Sue Higginbotham reaches for the paper, to see the page, right? And I get to walk that out to the observers and say, hey, before these even get uploaded, here you go. So I just really feel about that's a lot. So.
All right. Here's one from the parent list.
Yeah.
How do you know a registered voter is a U.S. citizen?
Good question. Because they attest to it. That's it. That's the answer. Here's what I would say. Citizenship and voting, especially in Washington State. Let's go back to that triangle, right? Because in Washington, where did I say the center point of that is? Right? It's probably about right here. Oriented towards accessibility. So in our system, the laws that we have, the laws that I'm obligated to administer, we're oriented towards an accessible system, which means a voter doesn't necessarily have to prove their citizenship, they attest to it. We do have non-citizens who do get registered to vote. How do I know that? Because oftentimes they receive a ballot or contact us, and they say, heck no, I don't want this. Because it would jeopardize their ability to become citizens someday if they're on that path. This is policy. Oregon just passed a law, universal voter registration, right? Everybody must be a registered voter. You don't have a choice anymore. In some ways, there's a lot of people who say, hey, that's moving that little dot a little closer to accessibility. I would say, and this is a conversation I had with some people in our Secretary of State's office, that can jeopardize some folks, right, who maybe are non-citizens. It doesn't just jeopardize the integrity and the security of the process. For those folks, if they get registered to vote, they didn't want to, and they're not citizens, it is a complicated issue, but I would say registration and voting are two separate things. And most of the time, the reason I know we have people who have been registered is they say, hey, I don't want this, or mom and dad don't want this.
All right, another audience question, and a compliment.
Okay.
How do you stay fresh-eyed when you are performing canvassing?
Oh, fresh out of performing canvassing. So I've sat in what now? Last year was I've done 7 canvassing boards now. And they do get a little mind-numbing. I'll be the first to admit, we get a little goofy sometimes. And especially when people do funny things with their ballots, like we get love notes all the time, right? Which I think are kind of funny. So I don't mean that awful. You guys, that type of stuff. So it's fun. It's a fun process. I think the people I get to work with, starting with our administrative election staff, are really professional. They put it together in a way that it's efficient. And then there's just a lot of knowledge from the other council members. I mean, Brad's got lots of experience doing it as the chair of the county commissioners this year. Mr. Zemple has been doing it for 30 plus years. So I've got good people to work with, and we did that. So it can be a process.
All right, this is the final prepared question.
Oh, sure.
And I'll open it up to anything you would like to say, and pass the mic around. This question is interesting. How long does the auditor keep all materials related to any given election?
It depends. Federal elections, 22 months. That includes our election live view camera data storage. So, interesting point that we talked about last night in the observer training. Because that retention is 22 months for the camera data storage, the actual cost to install the cameras in the election center, 3 cameras, $2,500. $15,000 in data storage. So, because we have to keep that for 22 months in stacks every federal election. 60 days for the non-federal elections for just the local and state ones.
Very good. Who has other questions?
Yeah, all right. Karen, right?
What does the law say about submitting other people's ballots? Submitting, not filling.
Oh, okay. Good clarification question. Submitting other people's ballot, there is no law against it. So, and that, the term that is sometimes thrown around is ballot harvesting, but it could be as simple as husband and wife depositing, each other's ballots, all the way up to canvassing. But in Washington State, there's no law against it. It's a simple thing.
Other questions, comments?
The bottom of most of the ballot boxes say no electioneering. Can you explain that to voters and why they shouldn't feel comfortable going to the ballot box to drop their voter's ballot?
Yes. Okay, so no electioneering. We were having a good talk about this before this event. But what the law says is that you can't basically go campaign within the vicinity of a voting center. So that's like the hub we do up at CW. That's like the Upper County Vote Center. That's our auditor's office, right? That's our observation area. Or within 70 feet of it's a 25 feet of the ballot box. And the idea is this, right? So you wouldn't want a group or people affiliated with one candidate or another standing in front of the ballot box and like blocking the access to it. Totally makes sense, right? I take the view that law, the way I interpret it in my office, is with that intent, right? Like we're trying to preserve a little bit of neutrality around the ballot drop box in our elections office for those issues that are on the ballot within the election period. I will tell you in other county auditors' offices, they interpret it as you come in our office with your political candidate's hat or shirt or say something political, 365, you're out of here. No politics. I'm a free speech guy. I have an issue with that. So I just say, what I direct my staff is, hey, if people are wearing stuff or speaking out in a way that is disruptive and it's on the ballot, let's ask them not to do that. Or direct them to me. There's signs all around. It's like, hey, if you want to talk politics, go talk to the auditor. Come sit in my office and we'll chat about it. It's no problem. But yeah, I take, that's what it is. I take that view of it. But depending on what election office you go to Washington State, you might get a different vote, and that's just important to know. Usually that's backed up by that specific auditor's possibly. So, good question.
More questions?
So I know, in different parts of the country,
Yeah.
Elections staff and auditors have experienced harassment or
Sure.
violence in some cases. Has anything happened since you've been in office in Kittitas County here?
Not related to elections. I mean, I kicked one crazy guy out of our office once, but he was mad at my licensing desk. So, I mean, yeah, we haven't experienced a lot. And part of my whole approach is I try to be proactive in terms of getting out in the community and kind of sharing the message and all. Like, I think the more open and transparent auditors are with the process, the more you get sort of that positive interaction in the community. So far, that's been my experience. I know before me, the staff would generally say the same thing too. I know 4 years ago, we had one of our deputies on election night who was closing the ballot drop box, and they got screamed at by somebody because that person was like 3 minutes late for dropping their ballot off. I don't think that has anything to do with like politics or the election. I think they just should have been on time. But that's the only incident that I specifically know of in the last 5 years. Good. Yes, sir.
In 2005, there was a federal commission that was headed by Jimmy Carter and James Baker that looked at election fraud. One of the documents is mailing ballots.
Oh.
So, I don't know if you speak to that or not. And I have a second question also.
Okay. I'm not sure I can speak to a specific condition from 2005. I'm not looking at it right now. I would say, just in general, Washington process, that's about when Washington started mailing ballots. There's a lot of things that have developed in the law and a lot of security measures that have been implemented over the course of 20 years. So I would say that I'd be interested in seeing that, but I'd also be interested in seeing something 20 years on from that, and kind of an evaluation of the system since then. If you get a second question.
Are you selecting the random ballots? Do you use some type of random number generator or something else?
Good question. Numbers in a hat or a little jar. We put little numbers. So I'm going to show you. So our ballots, before they're processed, are all stored right here. And these are open cages, right? They're little blue boxes. Those are the batches. And what we do is we number them, right? 1, let's say 40. That's a pretty good number. And then before we start scanning them, we're like to select our 2 batches. We take 1 through 40, we put them in a number, and then I do it most of the time. Honestly, when nobody shows up, I'd like somebody to show up. Please draw the number out of the batch. Makes me feel better about the process. But somebody's got to do it if nobody shows up, so I do it. Right number, and then those batches will be set aside and locked on the other side over here. And secured. And yeah, good question. All right, I'm 0 for 1. Let's see if you give me 0 for 2.
Regarding the certification board,
Yes.
what is the process if the board is not agreed?
Where are my attorneys in here? Because that's what we're, no. It's 3-person board. So we're gonna, it's gotta be 2 to 1, some way or another, right? But I think what your question is, what if we decide not to certify? We're going to court. we're going to go to court. Actually, it was an issue in the legislature this last session. The Secretary of State was given the power to basically override the non-certification of the canvassing board. That's controversial on auditors because it's like, hey, that's kind of local control. It's going to go to court regardless. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully not. Hopefully not here. Yeah. Sure.
How much does it cost to store the ballots and envelopes that are saved for like 22 months?
Yeah.
It has to be off-site, right, in the courthouse?
No, we keep it on site. Yeah, it's next to our election room, separate secure area.
Just downstairs? I
Yeah.
thought there'd be so many that they have to be off-site.
It's pretty full.
Okay.
And we keep, so 22 months is the minimum. I kept 2020 for well into the beginning of this year because we had people still requesting for records. So we can extend it. We don't have to, but 22 months is the minimum. I'd like to make records available if they are releasable and everything. So, but yeah, there is storage is at a premium. So courthouse is pretty full of people